How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another live stream repair. We've just got this one HomePod in sent to us today from Jeremy, and it has bass issues. If I remember correctly from their email, they have no bass at all anymore. It was previously popping. So let's actually get this plugged into some shut-up power and check that out real fast. Alright, it finished booting.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
Yeah, that is a very tinny can you got there. So let's actually wipe off this top real fast, and then we will start tearing this one apart. There we go. I'm also pleased to announce, after the third try here, we've got our hands on a Cat S62 thermal smartphone. So what's special about this guy here is, if I can figure out how to use it here, it's got a thermal camera built into it. So I just got this in not more than a few minutes ago here, so I've just been playing with it, and apparently the app crashed just now, so that's gonna go over well. But we're gonna let that charge. It was completely flat dead when we got it. Maybe we'll mess with it after the stream here, point it at a few HomePods and a few amp boards and see what we find. But anyways, let's get the main attraction out of the way here. There we go. Wow, that came off real easy. I can dig that. I see a dark spot in the middle of the woofer cap here, so. Ooh. You hear that? That should not sound like that. I'm going to wager a guess we've got ourselves here a thoroughly roasted subwoofer, most likely caused by excessive DC offset here. So we'll get the woofer replaced, if I'm correct, and then we'll repair the root source of that problem, most likely, which is too much DC being sent from the amplifier into that woofer. And that tends to happen from a few filtering capacitors on the amplifier starting to crap out over the years and allowing more and more DC to be passed through the amp, which gets amplified and then sent to the woofer. And DC on your speaker is no bueno. Audio is an AC signal, not a DC signal. And when that DC voltage is applied to your subwoofer, the woofer will hold itself in one position and cause it to overheat. The AC audio signal allows the woofer to move back and forth, which naturally keeps things cool. It causes issues with distortion, makes the amplifier work harder than it needs to, can wreak all sorts of havoc. Let's get this basket pried off here. Will it play nice with us today? And I'm not gonna pry up against the screws for the woofer this time because we know this woofer is dead, so I don't care about keeping it looking pristine. I'd rather have some nice and straight screws to reuse because this woofer is cooked. Okay, that looks ready to pry. There we go. Let's get some of that extra glue out of here so we're not fighting it when we put this back together. And we can get this woofer out of the way. And time for the grand reveal. Oh, I can smell it. Oh boy. You see how roasted that is in there? Pretty much charred black. This is what you want that coil to look like, that nice copper. This is an old bird voice coil. You can see where it goes from like super toasted burned to nice copper. That's what that guy looks like in here. And that sounds and feels horrible. So that woofer is certainly roasted. We'll set that to we'll put that in the subwoofer graveyard. And we want to get this amplifier out of here so we can test it for that DC offset problem. Alright, everything else on the amplifier looks to be in okay shape. So let's get this powered on the test bench here and see if we are correct in our assumption that DC offset killed this woofer. If we are not correct, then probably what happened is just simply the woofer eventually gave out. It's possible, you know. Woofers generally don't just die on their own, but sometimes, you know, they can overheat and crap out. Usually, you know, though, the speaker dying on its own, you don't normally... You can reasonably assume that that's the least likely scenario here. Where is... Here we go. That woofer is really smelling up my, excuse me, my whole desk here. Oof. We're gonna get our multimeter connected to this other woofer here that we've got connected to the amp. Make sure we're getting a good connection there. Alright. So this should be ready to power on for a quick test. We haven't changed anything yet. I mean, we put a different woofer on there, but we want to see if this bad boy is spitting out too much DC. Oh. This is the wrong logic board. This is my bricked board. We want our good logic board that works. There we go. Alright. Show me what you got. Ooh. Jumping up to the 2-volt scale. We've got 900 millivolts of DC offset. So that is definitely enough to cause your subwoofer to fry itself over a short period of time there. And listen to how severe the pop is when we unplug it from power here. And also watch the subwoofer move. Yikes. So that's usually why I ask for when people inquire about popping repairs. That's why I inquire about how severe the popping is, because if all you experience is a slight quiet popping and no other issues, generally that's pretty expected behavior, and it's a good sign that there isn't enough DC offset to really cause any other problems. If the popping is really severe like this, and or you experience death farts and crackling in the bass, that's a sign that you're popping coming from the DC offset. That's the sign that the offset there is too large. And 900 millivolts is definitely large enough to fry that subwoofer speaker. So before we just willy-nilly pop a new woofer in this HomePod and call it a day, we will want to replace the capacitors responsible for filtering that DC offset on the amplifier. And so after we replace those caps on the amp, we shouldn't see hopefully more than 10 millivolts of DC offset. That is a perfectly safe number to have. So if we get a nice close-up of our culprit here, we'll be taking a stab at these 4 capacitors right here. These love to go bad over time and allow too much DC to be passed from the DAC, which converts the digital audio into analog, before it gets sent to the amplifier, where it amplifies the analog audio signal into something that the speakers can actually, something that you can actually hear coming from the speaker. So, DC offset is pretty much simply that the audio amplifier circuit is producing a DC voltage as it's being sent to the subwoofer. And like I said earlier, your audio signal is AC, not DC. And DC on your speakers it's unwanted. Generally, everybody says not to allow more than about 50 millivolts of offset. That anything at or below 50 millivolts is acceptable, and anything less than 10 millivolts is a pretty great, excellent score. So those are our main target is below 50 millivolts. Our perfect target is below 10 millivolts. So enough rambling. Let's pull these puppies off. See if we can't get that DC reading on the meter down from 900 to no more than 10. And I'm going to preheat the other side of this board for a second here so it makes it a little easier for us to pull those bad boys off. And then we can go at it. And there we go. Old caps be gone. Let's grab a fresh set of new caps. If you want to know which parts I use for my repairs, I put all of the parts that I use up on my website at nixfix.com. Check it out up there. And go to the common issues section. And there you will find all of the parts I use. And my website is due for a refresh here. I need to go through and add a couple of new issues we've found and repaired since then. Gotta let the soldering iron warm up here. Forgot to turn it on. There we go, we've got some fresh solder on there. I actually use low temp solder for these pads so that we can use as little as heat as possible getting these new capacitors put into place. Probably not absolutely necessary, but I feel like it makes the job a little easier, and well, you're putting these poor little caps under enough heat as it is, might as well try to reduce how much you gotta put them under. There we go. I think those are on nice and happy. Not the straightest I've ever had them, but they're on there nice and firm. No shorts with anything nearby. Alright. Now, before we test this, we're going to flip this around and we're going to take a look at that power diode on the other side. This has nothing to do in particular with our base issues or our DC offset. However, this diode right here loves to fail quite often and prevent the HomePod from powering on. So while we've got it apart and in our hands here, we're going to replace that diode to prevent that problem from happening anytime in the future for this guy. Anytime in the near future, at least. Very good. We'll stick that into the graveyard. And let's grab a fresh new diode from the parts pile. Do a flip. Alright, I think we're all ready for slapping this thing together and seeing if we're all squared away. Got no more DC offset. Got no rusty old power diode in there to worry about. You've got 18 of them. Goodness. Well, hopefully I won't have to see any of them ever, and you will just have great luck and you won't have any of the other ones fail. Nah, DC offset issues aren't going to have anything to do with software issues in general. The iCloud password issue, I've seen that randomly on a few of mine too. I honestly don't know what that's coming from. Yeah, I really don't have a clue what could be causing that. Because it happens on a few of mine on occasion. Usually after I enter the iCloud password, I don't see it again. Okay. Alright, so that meter, maybe not allowing the memory to hold the password in flash memory. Yeah. The DC offset is really only having an effect on the audio being produced. It's not really affecting like the logic board or the logic board's ability to communicate with the internet reliably. So, unfortunately, two totally different issues. Okay, powering this bad boy up. Keep an eye on the meter here after we wake up the amplifier, and we'll see if we've got our DC offset issue fixed. Remember, we want to see hopefully anything below 50 millivolts is passable. Anything below 10 millivolts is ideal. Right on. We've got a pretty excellent score here of just 2 millivolts. So that is an excellent result. And our base is still working. So, this is ready to be put back together with a fresh subwoofer. And we'll be just about done for the day. Slowly and carefully put that amp in there. Nice and easy. Careful. Careful. Nice. I lost count after about 100. We're probably past 175, 200 units that I've fixed at this point. For kicks and giggles, after we fix this this one up, we'll go ahead and count all of the power diodes that we have, because that's a pretty close indicator as to how many we fixed. I didn't keep the first 20, 30-ish diodes that I replaced for my repairs, nor when I was first starting off was I replacing the diode in every single repair. But after the first few months, I decided, regardless of what a HomePod came in for repair for, we will be replacing that diode in every HomePod that gets taken apart to prevent that no power issue occurring. And if it's, it only takes me a couple of minutes to pull the old one off, and it only costs $1 for the diode, and it only takes a few minutes to put a new one on, to me that's worth it, even if that specific HomePod was never actually going to experience that power issue. It's always a nice little bit of peace of mind, and everybody appreciates it. How are parts supply in general? Starting to get short on some. Oh man, I am actually starting to get a little short on amplifier boards, because there's quite a few that I still have between no sound or no bass issues that I haven't figured out yet. So I've got a bunch of amplifier boards that need repair that I haven't figured out the repairs for yet. I've only got like one to two, maybe three good amplifier boards left over. I'm all out of good cosmetic parts as far as like meshes and top covers, and that I'm pretty much out of. I've got a couple of good subwoofers. I've got a bunch of power supplies, tweeter speakers, shells, other plastic parts, cables and connectors, microphone boards. I've got a bunch of those still. But with the only way that I'm able to get HomePod parts being buying more broken ones off eBay, there's no telling how long I'll be able to do all of the repairs that I can do. You know, for sure I'll be able to do board repairs and keep most of these amplifiers going for much, much longer, but eventually we'll start running out of good parts, eh? Alright, you're getting muted. You are very annoying. She's threatened to put them all to the curb if I don't fix the Siri response issue. So because you have so many, let me ask you this: what kind of Wi-Fi setup you got at home? Because if you've got, if you don't have a fairly serious Wi-Fi setup or a pretty capable Wi-Fi router, 18 HomePods is going to make that thing really hurt. And speaking from experience, once I got more than like 10, I needed to get 2 access points for my Ubiquity network, because I noticed that as I started playing to more than 6 at a time, my Wi-Fi started to really drag some serious ass. And once I added a second access point, I basically split all of my HomePods up between the two. And things have been running pretty rock solid since I did that. You know, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It may not be Wi-Fi issues for you, but I would be willing to place a bet that you've got some sort of intermittent Wi-Fi problems causing your Siri responsiveness. Three access points. G3100. I'm not sure what that is. Let me look that up. Verizon Fios router. Alright. So you've got 3 of those meshed up. Based on my Wi-Fi mesh experience, I'm gonna say check and see if you can find out which HomePods are connecting to which access points. And of course, if you can, lock the HomePods to the closest access point to them. Because I noticed when I got my second access point, most of them went to the closest access point automatically, but some of them just, it made no sense why they were connecting to the farther access point. So I went in and I locked them all to the closest access point that they were located to. Did you lock them to the 5 gigahertz or 2.4 gigahertz? Okay, that makes sense. And then also make sure that you don't have anything offline in your home app, in your home kit, because like if you have an old iPad as a home hub and it's not online anymore, or if you had like an old HomePod that's no longer online, that can cause Siri to be unresponsive. Engineers are still looking at it. Yeah, I have a feeling they may not get very far with that, but if they do, I would really love to know what they found and what they proposed was the solution for you. Okay, does that sound nice and sealed? Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure thing. Thanks for joining the stream, Jeremy. And after I kill the stream here and have a little bit of time to make sure that this is sound tested and all good to go, I'll shoot you an email with the next steps for getting this guy back to you. So, thanks for joining the stream. time for the final piece here. Alright, let's give it one last test here for the stream. And drum roll, please. Alright, let's give her the beans.
I'm having trouble connecting
Yeah.
to the internet. I'm having...
Yeah! Perfect score. Everything works. Alright. Well, that's all we've got for you guys today. Just a pretty easy, straightforward base repair from a too much DC offset. Hope you all enjoyed that live stream repair. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop it down in the comments, or visit my website, nixfix.com, where I've got a bunch of information on fixing your own HomePod or mailing it in for repair to show up here on stream. In any case, I'll catch y'all in the next one. Goodbye!